Let's talk about cuckolding. Yeah, that word. It's loaded with all sorts of assumptions, isn't it? Usually things like humiliation and weakness. But what if everything we think we know is, well, just plain wrong? We're about to peel back the layers of cultural noise and see what hundreds of hours of actual research has to say.
No, really, I want you to think about it for a second. What's the immediate picture that pops into your head? Because for most of us, that cultural script is so powerful, and it usually points to some very specific, very negative ideas.
Yeah, these are the words that usually pop up. The story we're all told is about a weak guy, an insecure man, and a whole dynamic built on shame. It's a simple story, easy to swallow, and pretty much everyone accepts it.
But here's the kicker. That simple story, the research says it's almost completely off the mark. When you actually dig into the data, the picture that emerges is, wow, it's so much more complex, and honestly, way more fascinating. It challenges pretty much everything we assume. Okay, so let's dive into our first section here and tackle the biggest myth right out of the gate, the why. Why are people drawn to this? The common assumption about what drives the guys in this scenario is, well, it's strong, but the data tells a completely different story. And this right here is where things get really interesting. See, the assumption is that it's all about what the guy lacks, his insecurity, his weakness, but the research, it flips that script entirely. It suggests it's often about what he admires in his partner, her freedom, her agency, her desire. It's a complete shift from a mindset of what's wrong with me to what's amazing about her. And look, this isn't just some fringe idea. Dr. David Lay's research found that a whopping 70% of the time, the whole thing starts with the man being attracted to his partner's autonomy. 70%. I mean, just think about that. That one number basically blows the whole popular narrative out of the water. So what's really going on then? The key is it's not just one thing. It's not that simple. Researchers have actually broken it down into these different clusters. The biggest one? Compersion. That's, finding genuine joy in your partner's happiness and pleasure. Then you've got others driven by voyeurism, or the pure psychological intensity of it all. There's even this one they call reclamation, this kind of primal evolutionary kick from reconnecting afterwards. It's a complex cocktail of motivations, not just one simple single ingredient. Okay, so that brings us to our second big myth, and it's a huge one. The idea that the woman in this is just along for the ride, a passive or even reluctant participant. But the research shows her role often goes through this incredible transformation. And this timeline? It's a pattern researchers see again and again. It's so consistent, in fact, that it's become a pretty good sign of whether or not the dynamic will last. It often starts out with, a hesitant, okay, maybe out of curiosity or to please her partner. But then, over the next 6 to 18 months, something shifts. A lot of women discover these unexpected benefits for themselves. And what started as his fantasy, it actually becomes a real, authentic expression of her desire. She ends up taking the lead. So why does that shift happen? Well, this slide breaks it down beautifully. For one, a lot of women talk about being freed from this sort of caretaker burden, the pressure of being the sole source of their partner's sexual satisfaction. And that outside validation, it confirms that they're desirable, which, funnily enough, often makes them more attracted to their primary partner. And maybe the most counterintuitive part, her partner being genuinely enthusiastic about her freedom. That actually makes her feel more secure, more truly wanted in the relationship than ever. Okay, so we've got complex motivations, and we've got these evolving experiences. So what's the secret sauce? What makes the difference between the couples who thrive and the ones who just fall apart? The research is absolutely clear on this. It's not about the sex. It's all about the communication framework they build. And this is the first pillar right here, metacommunication. It's not just about talking about your feelings. The couples that make this work, they talk about how they talk. They have regular check-ins where they ask, hey, how is our process working? Are these rules still good for us? Could we be having these tough conversations in a better way? They're constantly fine-tuning their communication itself. All right, the second skill is a bit more abstract, but it's absolutely crucial. Psychologists call it negative capability. You can imagine this whole thing kicks up a tornado of emotions, right? You might feel jealousy and excitement at the same time, insecurity right alongside joy for your partner. The couples who succeed, they learn to just sit with that messiness. They can hold two contradictory feelings at once without freaking out and needing to solve it immediately. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of how they do it. Instead of seeing jealousy as this big, scary fire that needs to be extinguished immediately, they learn to treat it like data. They change the question. It's not, how do I make this feeling go away? It's, okay, what is this jealousy trying to tell me? Is there a need that's not being met? Do we need to tweak a boundary? Is this just an old insecurity popping up? Suddenly, this really destructive emotion becomes a powerful tool for growth. All right, final section, let's talk about the real-world outcomes. What actually happens to these couples down the road? The last big myth is that this is always a disaster waiting to happen, a ticking time bomb. But as you can probably guess by now, the reality is a whole lot more nuanced. Now, let's be super clear here. This is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy. The research shows that about 40% of couples who give this a shot, they call it quits within 6 months. The emotional work is intense, and the gap between the fantasy and the day-to-day reality can be huge. Success is definitely not a guarantee. But for the couples who do manage to navigate it, something really fascinating happens with the idea of trust. It completely gets redefined. Trust stops being about, I'm confident my partner won't sleep with someone else. Instead, it becomes, I'm confident my partner will honor our agreements, tell me the hard truths, and always prioritize our relationship's health, even when it's incredibly difficult. A lot of them say this kind of trust feels even deeper and stronger than what they had before. So when you look at it all together, the big takeaway is that this is absolutely a high-risk, high-reward situation. The risks, they're very real. You've got everything from boundaries getting blurred to catching unexpected feelings. But the potential rewards are just as profound. Things like radically better communication, deeper authenticity, and a real revitalization of the relationship. It's a powerful catalyst one way or another. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. All this research really shows that diving into this level of complexity can forge some incredible strength. And it makes you wonder, right? Maybe the secret to any strong relationship isn't about trying to avoid the difficult stuff, but about actively building the skills to navigate it together.